I'm sitting here with Garth Donhauser, fellow RE/MAX agent at our office, RE/MAX Kelowna. Garth is defined by his handshake, his warm smile, his personable approach to each individual client. And I can say that's true. I've done several deals with Garth, and he's just a wonderful guy to work with. Garth has been a long-term Okanagan resident with 9 years of real estate experience, along with an additional background of home construction and sales. Garth is also an active member of the Lake Country Chamber of Commerce, and I understand you just got elected president.
Yeah, that's correct.
Of the Lake Country Chamber of Commerce. Once you get an opportunity to work with Garth, you will see his passion in excelling with his old school ways, but with a modern day insight. And one of Garth's favorite quotes is, "People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care," by Theodore Roosevelt. So today, I want to talk to Garth about his experience as a realtor here in Kelowna. And in particular, we'll touch on some of the regulatory changes that all of us as realtors are facing right now. I want to talk a little bit about how that affects us as realtors, but more importantly, how that affects our clients and the public at large. So first of all, Garth, thank you very much for coming on the show today. I know you're an extremely busy guy with everything you're doing, and I really appreciate your time. So I want to give you a platform to tell us about your work and your fascinating life. So Garth, why don't you fill in some of the gaps that I've left out about yourself? Tell us where you grew up. Tell us how you ended up in Kelowna.
Thanks, Luke. It's kind of interesting, my family originated here in Kelowna, but my wife and I, she's from Manitoba, and I lived in Alberta most of my life. But living in Manitoba for 12 years, we moved through the prairies and got to Calgary in the early 90s, finally got back there. And things were going well, and then the bust hit. And my wife said to me, "So where do you want to live? Because we can live anywhere. We can be broke wherever we live. It doesn't matter." Right. So that was our basis of coming into BC. And so we moved here in 2006. The market was pretty strong, and my wife says, "You should be a realtor." Mm-hmm. And I thought about it too, but it just wasn't ready. And so the bottom line is we came to the Okanagan. Family kind of brought us here, and it's been a really pleasant experience for sure. A little struggling in the first 3 years, of course, but without struggle, there's no gain.
You became a realtor in 2009?
Correct.
Is that right? And that was kind of a low point for our market here. So what was that like getting into the business?
Well, Luke, I would tell you that in 2009, everybody kept saying to me, "You're going to be a realtor?" I was studying for the course. And I said to them, "Yeah, of course." "Well, why would you get into real estate? The market's down and there's like 2,000 realtors in the Okanagan." And I thought, well, what a better time to get in, because everybody's going to be leaving. And so my big situation there was, can I make it through those down times? And I knew inside myself that if I just build relationships with people, I could make this business work. So for the first 2 to 3 years, I struggled. I remember making $28,000 in commission my first year, and $27,833, I believe, was my expenses. And I thought, whoa, I actually broke even, And so, that was quite exciting for me. So I knew if I could struggle through 2009, I could do it the next year and the next year after, and it just had nowhere to go but up.
Garth, I'm a big fan of personal transformation stories, and I assume that you were not exactly the same person 10, 20, 30 years ago. Would you share a story with us from your past that if someone just met you today and they heard this story, they'd be a little bit surprised because you've changed so much?
Well, that is an amazing question. And Luke, I think the biggest thing through my lifetime is learning about who I am. And I think you only learn about yourself through trial and error, mostly trial and a lot of error. So that being said, I knew early on I'd gotten to the trades because my father was a plumber. And I learned how to look at construction from a different aspect. And then I met a fellow in Alberta, out of Calgary, a good friend of mine, Jerry Condi, who basically was an engineer, and he said, hey, we should get into renovating houses. So that's what we did. We moved to Winnipeg, and him and I started renovating houses. So we learned all the skills we needed to do because we couldn't afford to, pay those tradespeople. So that being said, I learned about drywall, I learned about electrical, I learned about, of course, knew about plumbing, I learned about roofing, framing, all of the things that are components when you're looking at building a house. Not only building a house, but repairing a house. So the bottom line is I had this amazing basis for what I'm doing today. And then I didn't really like construction. I always felt like I just couldn't get energy there. It felt very deflated. And the reason that is because I realized through that whole time period in my life that I needed to be around people because people give me energy. And so I got out of the trades and went into sales. And I exceeded my expectations in sales. Every time I worked a straight commission job, I thought, this is great. I have to, not answer to the big guy. I just answer to me and my paycheck. I determine my paycheck. So every time I had a straight commission job in sales, I did very well. And I went back sometimes to the just regular pay, and I just felt like somebody's had a thumb on top of me, needling me all the time, and I just hated it. Mm-hmm. So I realized early on that commission sales and people gave me energy. And my wife gave me a boot in the butt one year and said, you should be a realtor. And I never really thought about it too much. I did one time when I was younger because I had a friend who worked at Remax in Kelowna who we used to sell our properties that we renovated and had listed, my buddy Jerry and I. And he said, Garth, you should go into real estate. His name was Charlie Brown. How ironic is that? Right. So Charlie, he encouraged me, and I thought about it, but I thought, how am I going to ever get enough money to do this? It's not going to happen. So pretty broke, pretty young, partied a lot. It just wasn't in my cards at that time. But from all of that experience, here I am today. My wife gave me a boot out the door after we moved to BC and says, you can't get a job here. You might as well get into real estate. So I went to the unemployment insurance office, and they said, by chance, we actually have a program. We're going to put you through your Sauder School of Business Training for your course. Wow. And we'll extend your insurance for another couple months until you get your course done. And I'm like, I'm in, right? Yeah. Because I couldn't find a job here. And that was, of course, in 2009. The economy was down. I mean, it was tough. Right. So that was a real blessing. And so that's what I needed. I need that little push on the butt. And then as I started doing the real estate, it was so rewarding because all of that experience, the construction, the sales experience, all started to come together for me. Mm-hmm. And I learned through that whole process that you still have to build relationships. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's been the biggest thing in my whole world. And so I've always sold myself because I'm the product. You're the product. Right. And so the bottom line for me is it's been a trial and error thing, like I said earlier on, but it's been a growing experience, and my income has been really, I'm making more money now than I've ever made in my whole life. And at the same time, I feel so blessed, and I give back a lot.
That's awesome. So you touched on your sales experience and your construction experience, and all these things have benefited you in real estate. You also have an experience which a lot of younger realtors don't have, and that is selling through a market downturn. So you touched on that. Maybe tell us a little bit about how do you get through that when your expenses are maybe a few $100s less than your income. How do you plow through and sustain that until the market turns up again?
Well, I appreciate that question, Luke. I think the biggest thing when we're in a downturn market is you have to believe in yourself. And you can get yourself psyched out so quickly with a negative market. And you start listening to the news and you hear, oh, it's this, it's bad day here, the economy's down, and blah, blah, blah. And you get sucked into that, and it takes your whole demeanor down. And pretty soon your energy is dwindled to the point where people don't feed off you anymore. And once you figure that out, and you stop listening to the crap on TV, and you stop turning the radio on to listen to the news, and you realize that each day when you get up, you got to start your day with the best person you can be, that changes your world in a downturn. Because when you run into those hump days where they're tough and you're kind of watching your pennies, which I did for 3 years, I think the biggest thing I learned through that whole process is that you got to believe in yourself, and eventually you bring that energy into your life, and then people come to you and you start to build relationships. And that person you said hi to on the street, at the coffee shop, at the bank, wherever you are, they're going to remember, oh, Garth, he got that smile, he's a positive guy. And then they find out what you do. They remember what you do because you said, hey, how's your day? How are you? And you smile, and you care. They pick up on that. Pretty soon you're getting a call. Hey, Garth, can you come and talk to us about our house? Or they're asking you for advice. And so that's where I really started to shine, was through that period of time, as people started talking to me. And then I got involved in things like the Chamber of Commerce and activities where the community needed help, volunteering. And that is the best way to do things, because when you don't have money to promote yourself, you have to promote yourself through a handshake. So wherever you can get those opportunities created, that's what you got to do. And that's what I did. And I think, some days I struggled. I went home and I thought, oh man, how am I ever going to get through this? But I got up the next morning, put my socks on, my pants just like the day before, and I started out again. And it's paid off some serious dividends. I've got a very good client base now.
That's great. So today you're a successful realtor through that difficult period. Did your success go up in a straight line? Like, was it totally smooth sailing, or did you have some setbacks that you had to get through?
I think a lot of people don't realize that, persistence is the key, even when you don't think you're succeeding. And I would tell you that, I would say weeks on end, I would have nothing going on. There was probably 6 months before I had one sale. And you just have to push through that. So I guess the bottom line there is that, we had those slow periods, and it didn't go up fast, but you get a sale every once in a while. And you just work, and once in a while you get paid. And then pretty soon you keep working, then you get paid. Mm-hmm. And so I would say to you that through that whole process, the first 3 years you would have some bumps and some downs. But after the fourth year, the fifth year, it was a steady increase, and then pretty soon it went exponential into the seventh and eighth year and ninth year, and it kept going up pretty serious. Now I'm at a level where I'm still kind of leveling out, not going up so much, and I'd like to get it to go up, but there's so much time in the day, and now it's called time management. That's what I'm struggling with the most. Right. I've hired an assistant, Darla Lozano. She's been awesome, and between her help and some executive people that have been around the business for a while and taking direction from them, I think we can take it to that next level.
One of the things I love about RE/MAX is that a lot of the stuff that we had to deal with working for smaller firms gets taken care of for us. And we've got such a great infrastructure here of administrative staff and conveyancing staff and everything. It's really great. And you were one of the reasons that I decided to come here. I came, I think, 2 months after you did. And I said to myself, I don't know if I told you this, but I said to myself, if Garth is doing it, I should probably do it. So tell us a little bit more about your job in real estate. Tell us what you love about it. What gets you excited to come to work each day?
Yeah, Luke, I think the big thing with my excitement with work is the people's energy. And I always want to achieve something that maybe they couldn't do with another person. And so there's times when you have a situation, it's quite a struggle to find them a house. So the challenge, that's my thing that turns me on, and then seeing their faces at the end of the day going, wow, I didn't think we'd get here, but we did it. We bought that house that we want. Or, the houses that are tough to sell. And you have that listing for a year, maybe 2 years. I've had listings for 3 years plus. I had one listing for 8 years, and it took me that long to sell it. But I never gave up. I never, 8 years. Yeah, never gave up. Sold it, and I'm not a quitter. And I think when I'm working for people, I take it personally, and I want to achieve what they want. And I want their experience to be better than they've had in the past with maybe another realtor. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's not easy to do that. You can't be everything to everybody, but that's my goal, and that's what I really thrive on. I don't really count my money, as you'd say, realtors make lots of money. Well, we work bloody hard. People don't realize we're doing 12, 16 hours a day. We don't get a day off for 6 months. The phone's always ringing. I mean, I'm grateful for that. I'm sure you are too. Yeah. However, there is some time you have to take down for yourself so you can recharge your batteries and be that energetic person for your clients. So my goal is to always to be that person for them, and that's what drives me.
I got to ask you about that 8-year listing. Did your seller get frustrated with you? Did you have any, shouting matches, or did you get fired and regain the listing? Or, just 8 years of sellers saying, okay, you're doing your best. How did that happen?
Oh my God, that is a great question. I think the biggest thing is people don't realize is that when you've got a listing that long, it's you have to have a serious amount of patience and understanding. We have a term, or I have a term that I use, and it's called eating crow pays well. And the truth of the matter is that people don't realize what we have to sacrifice from time from our families. And this was a good situation where these guys, there was 4 partners that own this property. They couldn't give it away. Could not give it away. And I explained to them, we have to be patient. And so we go so far, and then they get frustrated with each other. And then I'd hear all about it from different. It's like being in a marriage, but you're hearing from you're the counselor now, right? You got that counselor hat on. That's what you have to do, and that's, I guess, that's what we do well. As we have to wear a counselor's hat a lot of times. Yeah. And then we're the expert, which I hate to be that person, but at the same time, that was the secret in this situation.
You must have been absolutely thrilled when you got that offer. And all 4 guys signed it, and you must have thought, like, pinch me, is this really happening?
Well, it's funny because we had multiple offers in that property that collapsed, and then the last offer came in at full price, and these guys are like, I couldn't do any wrong. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it was pretty exciting time for me. I remember coming into the RE/MAX office, and we had our Tuesday morning meeting. And I told everybody, I finally sold that listing I've had for 8 years. They all looked at me like, are you crazy? Yeah, longest listing I've ever had. But persistence.
Amazing story. So is there anything about the real estate business that you find challenging or frustrating?
Oh, absolutely. As you know, Luke, the real estate industry is changing constantly, and then all the new rules and regulations that we have to deal with. And it's compliance, and disclosure over the top that the government wants us to work with. So I see that being a very big challenge for probably most of the realtors. My biggest issue is that we have to learn to communicate positive to our clients about those new disclosures, so they understand that, hey, this isn't us doing it, this is the government doing it, we have to comply, so let's do the best we have to do with this situation. Let's make it the best we can make it. So to turn it around and put a bit of a positive spin on it, I think is a much easier way to do things. Sure. As you know, negative people, you tell them something negative, it goes everywhere. But if you tell them something positive, it kind of, you're edifying them. Right. So I really think through this whole process, we need to edify ourselves and edify the clients. And, the government's the bad guy, but let's try to edify them a little bit too.
You're a very approachable guy, very warm personality, and I got a name tag because you've got one. Yeah. So I'm copying you in a lot of aspects, all positive. But you told me that people will sometimes approach you at a coffee shop because they see your name tag and they say, oh, you're in real estate. Now, with this new rule that we have, at a certain point, we got to whip out some paperwork or the app. Your style is a little bit different than mine. Like, you will talk to people at coffee shops and strangers and so forth. So how are you dealing with this new requirement that we have to make the disclosure on a practical level?
Yeah, I think it's really important that we talk about that, Luke, because it is a challenging circumstance that we have to deal with. The bottom line is we still have to build a relationship with those people. So when I'm out there in the public with my name tag, people see that and they go, hey, that guy's a realtor. Let's talk to him. Maybe he's got some information. And as you know, that we're allowed to share anything public that's on the market. So if it's on the news, say they said the market's down, we can talk about that. But we can't give advice. We can only talk about what's basically public. So most of the time, 99% of the time, that's all I am talking about. And my goal there with that relationship is that they'll ask me, so Garth, would you be interested in showing us some property, or would you be interested in come look and listening at our house? And that's where I have to, kind of interject and say, I would love to do that, but before we do that, I have to talk to you and sit down with you and talk to you about the paperwork that the government's asked us to deal with. And it's mostly about disclosure, so you have a clear understanding how agency works. Right. And then I'd say, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, are you okay with that? What's a good time to get together? Yeah. And I think they understand for the most part. Mm-hmm. But I think if we put, again, that positive spin on it, it changes it. But we are allowed to talk about what we do. We can still build that relationship. The things we can't do are give them agency right away, as you know, without having that disclosure signed and explained. So that's my process.
It just occurred to me it's becoming a little more similar to what lawyers deal with. If we meet a lawyer at a coffee shop or at a party, they're not going to start giving us advice on our case, right? They can tell us in general about the law or about what they do. But if we're serious about working with them, we have to go to their office and we have to have a conversation about representation. So in a way, it kind of elevates our industry to a little more professional. We can't be throwing out advice on a casual basis anymore. It's more serious now.
Luke, I agree with you 100% there. And I think that the biggest thing is that people will, as you know, in time, this will be old news. Right now, it's all new news. And so we're a little bit reactive versus proactive. And I think just turning that around and getting it to a proactive state will take the element of surprise out for everybody. Right. But that's kind of where I'm at with it too.
If someone was thinking of starting in real estate today, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I think, Luke, the big thing with real estate today is it definitely changed. And the social media thing, the marketing, the way you do your business is definitely going to change from what I'm old school kind of guy. I mean, the focus in any sales job is to get in front of people and to sell yourself and then hopefully sell your wares. And people don't want anything from you until they can trust you. Right. And it always boils down to that same thing. Get to know yourself and know your product. You're the product. And being that you're the product, that's where you have to start. No matter what job you're doing in sales, you're always selling yourself. You get married, you're selling yourself to your wife. I mean, constantly you're in a sales position, but people don't realize that their whole life they've been salespeople. They just don't know it. Right. So I think that's where I would start: is get to know yourself, get to know why you want to do something, and if real estate's your career, then you'll figure it out. You'll realize that whatever humps you got to go over, bumps and hills and challenges, you'll get through them because the goal is the end game. And so I always say when the facts when the dream is big enough, the facts don't count. And so that's the attitude I would take for somebody new, is that really say you want it and go for it. Just go for it. You'll figure it out.
I want to put you on the spot now. Okay. Can you name one person in the city of Kelowna that you find to be a fascinating person and that you would love to see come on this show in the future?
I like Ron Cannon. Ron Cannon was an MLA here for the District of Lake Country, and he was an amazing guy. He's a relationship expert. Right. And so that would be the guy I want to talk to. He knows so many people, and he's had a very successful career.
Garth, if someone is interested in talking to you about real estate, what's the easiest way for someone to get in touch with you?
Well, I appreciate that, Luke. I think the biggest thing is always call me directly, 250-212-2838. That's my cell number, so I always prefer that. Texting's fine as well. I'm starting to learn how to do that. When I started this business, I hardly know how to use a computer, let alone a text on a phone. I was like, what? But today, the communication is so much easier to connect with people. But yeah, that's the best way. Just call me direct.
Thank you very much, Garth. I feel like we've gotten to know you a little bit better on a personal level, and I've learned something today. So I really appreciate your time, and thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thank you, Luke. I appreciate your time, and I'm glad you came to RE/MAX. It's been a pleasure, buddy. Thanks.